Okay. Once again, good evening. We are continuing with our lesson on communication. Today, we are going to talk about the objectives of communication. So if you look at our lesson objectives, we'll be looking at objectives of communication. Then we also look at the types of communication. Remember, we have learned about the forms. Please take note. We talked about the forms of communication. Now we are going to talk about the types. So you should take note of that. The forms and the type, they are not the same. So we will look at the types of communication. And so we will have sub-sessions. So by the time we finish with the whole thing, you should be able to explain at least 4 objectives of communication. And then you should also be able to explain the 2 main types of communication. And then if there are forms, you will know why I said there are forms. That is the formal and then the informal. Then you should also be able to explain 3 advantages and 3 disadvantages of formal communication. Informal communication is the same as grapevine. So when you say grapevine, what is it? You should be able to explain what grapevine is. Then you should also be able to list at least 4 sources of grapevine information. Then you should be able to also mention at least 3 characteristics of grapevine information. And then you should also be able to explain at least 3 advantages and 3 disadvantages of informal communication or the grapevine. So let's look at it. The first one, objectives of communication. Very simple, straightforward. Why communication? What does communication do in the organization? Don't forget that we have already learned that communication is the lifeblood of every organization. And we learned that that means organizations cannot exist without communication. Just as human beings cannot exist without communication, organizations also cannot exist without communication. So, what are the objectives? The first one is that communication is used for conflict resolution. When there are conflicts in the organization, those conflicts are resolved. When you say resolved, it means you solve them through communication. If there is rancor, if there is friction, if there is any dispute among the worker or between one worker and another, or between management and workers, such conflicts must be resolved. And how can you resolve conflicts without communication? And use the oral communication to resolve conflicts in the organization. So that is the first one. To resolve, so communication is used to resolve conflicts in the organization. The second point, very simple, straightforward. When we are talking about organizing, managers give instruction. Communication is used for job instruction. A superior needs to give the subordinate instruction as to what to do and how the process involved in doing it. It is through communication that job instructions and processes are made known to the worker. So communication is used for job instructions and processes. The third one, very simple, straightforward, is that you remember when we were talking about motivation, we picked one theory in motivation, and that was Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That we said Maslow's theory of motivation. We talked about the physiological needs. We talked about the safety needs. Then we also talked about social needs. In every organization, people form friendship groups and so on and so forth. It is through communication that these social relationships, remember we have learned that in every organization, that's why when we were talking about organization structure, we said the structure is the relationship that exists within the organization. We look at formal relationships and we look at the informal relationship. You can establish relationships in organization through communication, and you can maintain such relations, whether formal or informal, through communication. If you are not told this is your boss whom you have to report to, how are you going to know the one you are supposed to report to? If you don't talk with someone, how do you establish friendship? And how do you maintain friendship? That is why even when people are marrying, the pastor will tell them communication is very important in marriage. It is important in every facet of life. So you cannot do away with communication. So that is the third point. Then the fourth point, very simple, straightforward. You know, in every organization there are rules. And these rules are written. And people must understand. So that is communication. There are policies. You have learned about rules. You have learned about policies. So you know all these things. And all these things must be communicated to the employees or the workers. And it is through communication that is done. So the fourth point is that it serves to influence the behavior, the attitude, and the beliefs of the organization's members. You cannot do things the way you want to do it. Rules will change your attitude. If you have bad attitude, there are rules there. If you go contrary to the rules, you are punished. If a manager wants to do whatever they want to do, policies are there to guide the manager's action. So, and all these things are done through communication. Then the fifth one, people share ideas and opinions in the organization. And it is through communication that ideas, it is through communication that opinions are shared within the organization for decision-making purposes. And finally, to help in the transmission of objectives and policies. When top management formulate policies, when objectives are established, these objectives and policies are transmitted, they are disseminated, they are given to those who are supposed to implement them. And it's through communication that is done. So these are the objectives of communication. Let's move to our next subtopic, types of communication. Remember, don't forget, when you talk about types, it is not the same as, remember we said when you say the forms, we are looking at the direction. We are looking at the channel in which the information passes. So we look at the vertical, we look at the horizontal, and then we also look at lateral. But here we are looking at types. There are two main types. Either it is internal communication or external communication. So these are the two main types of communication. When you say something is internal, you know it means it is within. When you say something is external, you know it means it is outside. So within the organization, people share ideas, people share information. Superiors instruct their subordinates. Subordinates give feedback to superiors. So a lot of communication, whether formal or informal, people can talk about their family within the organization, how they spend their Christmas. All these are informal. And there is a formal one where your boss says, give me report today, do this. And it is through communication. And all these things, they take place within the organization. So that is the internal communication, which can be formal or informal. Then you have external communication, communication that takes place outside. The organization interacts with the outside environment. Remember, we have done stakeholders. We have internal stakeholders. We have external stakeholders. For your external stakeholders, you have to interact with them. If you need raw materials, you have to interact with the suppliers. When you make products, the products will be made known to the people through advertisement. All these things, that is external communication. So you interact with outside. You prepare your tax, you send to the Ghana Revenue Authority, and all these we are looking at external communication. So that is external communication, and it can be formal, it can be informal. Very soon we are going to talk about what is formal communication, what is informal communication, and you know all those things. So that is the types. Now let's pick them one after the other. Formal. Is that the first time you are hearing the word formal? I don't think so, because when you were in JHS or even primary 6 or even less, you learned about how to write letters, and your teachers told you 3 types of letters. Now, the first one, they said you have what you call formal letters. They also talk about informal letters, and then in between the two, semi-formal letters. When your teacher was explaining to you formal letters, there was an important word that was, you said they are official. So when you say something is official, what does that mean? That means it follows an established procedure. So when you say formal communication, then we are looking at the type of communication that is rooted along what we call official channel. Official. Why do you say it is official? Because procedures have been established, and then you have to follow that channel. For example, even in school, class captain, if there is any problem in your class, whom do you report to? That it has been established that when you have problem here, inform your form master. Then your form master will inform the head of department. If the head of department cannot solve it, it goes to assistant head academic. And if it cannot be solved there, it goes to the headmaster. If the headmaster too cannot do it, that one, it now goes maybe to the board of governors and so on and so forth. So that is what you call a formal communication. It is rooted along official channel. And we said that it follows established procedure. You are told what to do, and the right person must give the information. Let me give you another example in school setting. Now, who is supposed to tell you when you are supposed to vacate? Of course, it's the headmaster. So if the headmaster tells you, that is formal communication. So he said, we are going to vacate on 24th, so and so. He said, where do you go? So I got it from the official source. That means from the person who is supposed to give that information. So that is what formal communication is all about. Any information that is rooted along the official channel, any information that follows the established procedure, it is formal. Advantages of formal communication. Now that you understand the concept of formal communication, its advantages and disadvantages become very simple. The first advantage is very simple and straightforward. He said formal communication is effective way of transmitting policies. Now, if somebody who is not in a certain position, for example, the person is not a member of the board, who is supposed to communicate to you the policy that have been formulated, any other person comes to you, you may not even believe it. But when it comes from the official source, then you believe it. So it is an effective way of transmitting policies. Not only policies and objectives of the organization. The second point, very simple, straightforward, is that formal communication is more accurate. It's more accurate than informal communication. When the one who's supposed to give you information gives the information to you, the person is able to give you vivid and the exact information. If it doesn't come from that source, and it is coming from the informal source, if it is a grapevine, if it is a rumor, if it is a gossip, the person may add something. Somebody might have even told the person also goes, and then he also tells another person, he adds something, and there are distortions all over. So if you want an accurate information, the one that comes from the official source, the formal communication, is more accurate than the informal one. The next one, straightforward, very simple, formal communication that is in written form can be stored for future reference. So when you go to the organization, there are files, they keep the information there so that in future, when they want to make any reference for decision-making purpose or whatever it might be, you can have it. But if it is informal, which is usually rumors that people peddle, you may not have records there. So that is for the third point. The fourth point, very simple, straightforward. When people have peddled rumors, and such rumors have had negative effect on the members of the organization, then when official pronouncements come, when it comes from the right source, that you have been hearing that there's going to be ABC, you have been hearing that we are going to sack a lot of people from the organization because of ABC, please discard such information. It is not true. There's no truth in this. You see, if it comes from, once it comes from the official source, that official pronouncement is going to neutralize any negative effect that the rumor might have on the members of the organization. And that is exactly what the point is saying, that official pronouncements neutralize negative effects of rumors. The next one, very simple, straightforward, is that formal communication will clear any doubt that may be in the mind of employees as a result of rumors. So that is it. Let's go to the disadvantages. Very simple. The first one. Now, management have formulated policies. Remember, we have already learned that the business environment is not static. It is dynamic. Things change. So you may have a policy and you want to bring what you call policy change. When the policy change comes, people usually resist change. When you want to bring change, they will resist it. People usually don't want changes. Now, if there is any change in respect of policies, how do you communicate it? If it comes from the official source, in the first place, and then, okay, you come and then you tell them from the official source, the one who's supposed to tell you comes and tells that from this time you have changed this policy, from this time it is no more going to be this, it's going to be that. If they want to resist it, if they don't like it, they will resist it. And it can bring strikes, demonstrations, and so on and so forth. Such things, you have to test it. You have to test the pulse of the workers through informal communication. And you have to know how to do it. The government of Ghana or anywhere, if they want to bring any policy or whatever, they want to find out whether it will be popular among the citizens or citizenry. What do? They can give to bloggers, they can give to the media men. Then they start peddling rumors that there's going to increase in this, that, and that. They want to find out the reaction of people. That is what you mean by they want to test the pulse of the people. When they find out that the policy will not be welcomed by the people, then they may even come to tell you that there is rumor going around that we are going to increase this, we are going to do that, we are going to do A, we are going to do B, we are going to restructure certain things in the organization. Please discard such rumors. They are not true. We have not even thought of anything like that. But that might not be true. It was something they wanted to bring. But when they tested the pulse of the people through informal communication, they have now found out that it will not work. So they withdraw. So that is for that one. The former one is not appropriate in testing the pulse of employees concerning new policies. The second one, very simple, straightforward. It is associated with bureaucracy and red tapeism. These two things, you learned them before you left school for home. Bureaucracy. It follows an established or a formal channel. You have to do this, and you have to do that, you have to do this, and whatever. Class captain first see this person, and this person will see that, this person will see. That is bureaucracy. That is bureaucracy. And there will be red tape. You have the information will be withheld. You have to wait for information to come from the management, so on and so forth, before you can act. So, formal communication follows official channel and established procedure. So there is bureaucracy, and bureaucracy leads to delay in decision making. So that is for that one. The next one, we said it might not be able to cool down tempests in a situation where emotions or feelings are charged. When feelings are charged, when workers are demonstrating, when they are angry, official communication might not work. The official, because they are even rather annoyed with you. So how do you go and then you talk with them? That may be disastrous. So in that case, informal communication might work better than the formal one. So that is for formal communication. Now informal. Informal. So certainly you know that is opposite. So if formal is official, what is the opposite of official? Unofficial. So it means we are looking at, so when you say informal communication, that is communicating along an official channel. What does that mean? The one who is not, it doesn't follow established procedure. The one who gives the information is not the one who is expected to give the information. And that will be the informal communication or grapevine. It takes the form of rumors, gossips, and speculations. Yes, rumors, gossip, and then people in this word speculation, you understand it because you remember when we were talking about stock exchange. We learned about speculators in the stock market, and we learned about what is speculation. So there is anticipation. People look at situations and then they anticipate. They speculate. For example, there is sudden change in established procedure and people speculate that because this thing has happened, then it follows that this is going to happen. So that is for the forms it takes. Now let's look at the characteristics of grapevine. What are the features of grapevine information? Very simple. The first one has already been done. Now, what is that one? It takes form of rumors, gossips, and speculations. The second one, very simple, it operates where there is communication gap. We shall learn about what communication gap is. When you say communication gap, it means information doesn't flow. People who are supposed to get information do not get the information. You come to school and the school is supposed to give you information as to when you are going to vacate, when you are going on midterms, when you are going to have the industry program, and it should be communicated to you. If the school doesn't give you information you need, then we say there is communication gap. And that is what happens in organizations. So when there is communication gap, then people will search for information from other sources. And that will be the unofficial source. The third characteristic of grapevine is that its source is usually difficult to identify. Where did the information come from? If the headmaster is supposed to give you information and he gives, you know the source. Who gave this information? Said the headmaster. But the informal one, the source. Somebody told another person, who also told another person, and who also told another person, and so forth. So where is the original source? It is very difficult to identify it. The fourth one, very simple, I have already told you, is that it is usually distorted and half truth. So that is that. It is distorted. People will add, people will take away. You tell somebody something, you said A, they will say you said AA, and so on and so forth. So that is for that one. The last one, rumors move very fast. So it spreads very fast. It spreads very fast. So that is it. Sources of grapevine. People who peddle the rumors, where do they get the information from? That is the sources of the grapevine. Number one, when you leave confidential letters, when you say confidential letters, it means third parties are not supposed to have access to that information. That information is for some group of people, they are not meant for others. But if in your office you leave the letter, instead of putting the letters in cabinet or in files, you did not do that and you leave the letters on desks, then that will be the person got it from confidential letter that has been left on the desk unattended to. So the first source is confidential letters left unattended on desks or computers. If you don't shut down the computer and it is there, somebody will go and read the information. The second source is very simple. Loud voices from behind closed doors. You had a meeting at a place. Then, as you were discussing issues, your voices were so loud that employees who were passing by heard something, or an employee who was passing by heard something. And then you did not see the person, but the person had heard the information. So the person will be the one to peddle the information. So the source was that loud voice that came from behind closed doors. It is also called eavesdropping. Eavesdropping. If you are in a room talking about something, you see somebody will come there and then the person will be listening. That is eavesdropping. So that is why I said loud noises or voices from behind closed doors, or eavesdropping. Eavesdropping. So that is that. The next point is very simple, straightforward: accidental or careless remarks made by managers on certain confidential issues. You attended a meeting and you discussed something that was confidential. But when you came, accidentally or carelessly, you told somebody, a person might have done something, and then you forgot yourself, and then you told the person, you said something about it. That was accidental or careless remark, and that is also another source. The next one, very simple, straightforward, is waste paper basket or dustbins. When you write a letter, maybe there's a particular letter that is confidential, you made a mistake, then you took the paper, crumple the paper, then you put in a waste paper basket. Somebody went there, picked that piece of paper, wanted to do something with it, opened it, and saw that information. And the person started spreading it. So that is the waste paper basket. Or throwing confidential letters into dustbins. The last one is, which I told you, I said when there is sudden changes in established procedure. There is the way something should be done. So probably in the organization, when you want to do something, the first thing you do this, then you move from there to this place, then you move from there to this place, then you do this, then you move like this, then you move like this. Then all of a sudden they said, this thing is inefficient. Then they cut the procedure like this, and then it becomes something like this. The moment there is that sudden change in establishment, people will begin to speculate. That is, for example, why we said that they take the form of speculation. So people will begin to speculate. For example, in that case, somebody may say, looking at the way the thing was and they have cut it down, it means they are going to sack people, they are going to fire people. And that might not be true. It might be just mere speculation and a rumor. So that when there is sudden change in established procedure, that will let people speculate and send rumors. The next one, we are looking at the advantages of informal communication. Very simple. The first one has already been done here. We said that it is very fast. It spreads at a very fast speed. So that's the first one. The second advantage is that it can be used to test workers' pulse. Remember when we were talking about the formal organization, we said it cannot be used in testing the pulse of workers against or in respect of policy changes. But this one can be used to test the pulse of workers. I have already explained that one to you, but let me explain it again. What it means is that if you want to find out whether workers will accept a new policy, don't let it come from the official source. Use now that we have learned about the sources. For example, you can leave a letter and intention on a table for somebody to read, and then the person will spread it. Once you have not done that one, you can later come out to say that is not true. So you can use informal communication for that purpose. The next one, which is very simple, straightforward, is that it complements. It complements the formal communication, or that is filling the gaps that might exist in the formal one. Remember, we learned about communication gap here. When there's communication gap, people will search for information from other sources, and that will be the informal source. So that is for that one. The last one is that it is cheaper. Now, how much do you pay for those who are spreading the information? You don't pay anything, so it is cheaper. It is cheaper. The last aspect of our lesson this evening is that of disadvantages of informal communication. Number one, we have learned that one. They are distorted facts or half-truths. So they are half-truths and distorted facts. They are not accurate. They are not as accurate as the former one. It may be complete lies. It may be half-truth. So that is for that one. And therefore, we cannot rely so much on informal communication. The second point, very simple, straightforward, is that informal communication betrays management confidence and undermines management authority. Assuming you are the head of a particular unit or department, then you are the one supposed to give information to certain group of people. Anytime before you come to give the information, it has already been given. They know of it. They know of it. You see, it is undermining your authority. Something that you are supposed to do. People get it by any means and then they spread it. It happens in schools. If you are a headmaster, you have not told students about vacation. You have not told students about midterm. Somebody who knows may tell them. That is informal. So by the time you call students and they tell them that we are going to have vacation on this date, and what they already know. They already know. And that is undermining your authority. The last one is information may be released at the wrong time. Time is very, very important. There are certain times when you release certain information, they may be accepted or they may be welcome. That same information at another time, they may not be accepted or welcome. So even as a student, you must know when to ask something from your parents. There are certain times when you ask, you get. There are certain times when you ask, you don't get. Not probably your parents don't have. They may have, but the mood that they may be in, you may not get. So you must know when a piece of information may go. So while the official one is waiting to release the information at the right time, that it must be accepted, the unofficial information goes, and then it might not be accepted. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our lessons this evening. We have talked about the objectives of communication and then the types of communication. Under the types, we talked about internal and external. Then we said internal can be formal or informal. External can be formal or informal. What is the formal one? The formal one is the one that has been officially established. The informal one, unofficial. Now, even if you are in an organization and we are talking about Christmas or whatever, that is informal communication. If a manager is asking you about your family, you are discussing family, that is informal communication. And then we also talk about the advantages and then the disadvantages of both formal and informal. We said the informal is also called grapevine. So we look at the meaning of grapevine. We look at the characteristics of grapevine. We look at sources of grapevine. And then we have talked about the advantages. So let's see whether you'll be able to know what you are supposed to know. So answer these questions. Question 1. Explain any 4 objectives of communication. Question 2. Explain the 2 main types of communication. That is internal communication and external communication. Or distinguish between internal communication and external communication. The next question. What is formal communication? What is informal communication? State and explain any 3 advantages of formal communication. State and explain any 3 disadvantages of formal communication. What is informal communication? Or what is grapevine? State any 4 characteristics of grapevine. State any 3 characteristics of. No, we have talked about the characteristics, so the sources of grapevine. State and explain any 3 advantages of informal communication. And finally, state and explain any 3 disadvantages of informal communication. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you'll be able to answer these questions. Remember, after watching this video, you have your book. You have to go and study your book. Then you make comment. If you have any question, write the question under the comment section. And if you have not subscribed, better do that. We'll meet another time and continue with our topic, communication. We are not yet through. Till we meet again. Bye-bye.